We live in a world saturated by noise, not just the noise of traffic or technology, but the inner noise of thought, endless narration, commentary, comparison, a voice in the head that never stops. And because that voice is constant, we mistake it for reality. We believe what it says. We obey its judgments. We follow its fears. But what if that voice is not the truth? What if it's only a layer, a distraction from something far deeper? Ram Dass points to something simple yet radical, the power of silence. Not the silence of an empty room, but the silence within you, the space where thought slows down, where attention deepens, where awareness becomes sharp, clear, alive. This silence is not dead space. It's not boring or empty. It's the most vibrant, awake quality you've ever known. It's in silence that real hearing becomes possible. Not just hearing sounds, but hearing truth, hearing life, hearing the still voice of your own being. But to hear it, you must become quiet. You must turn inward, not to think more, but to notice what is already here beneath the thinking. Try it now. Pause. Don't try to silence the mind. That's just more noise. Instead, let the thoughts be there, but shift your attention to the background, to the space they arise in. Can you feel that? The stillness that surrounds thought, the silence that contains every sound, the presence that watches without effort. It's always been here. You didn't have to create it. You don't have to fight for it. You only have to stop running and listen. This is not a technique. It's not a method. It's a remembrance. A coming home to something you knew as a child, before language, before identity, before the world got loud. Silence is the doorway, not because it gives you something new, but because it reveals what never left. Silence is misunderstood. People think it's passive. They think it's weakness or absence or avoidance. But real silence is none of these. True silence is power. It is clarity. It is the fertile ground where insight blooms. When the mind becomes quiet, it's not that you become less intelligent. You actually become more intelligent. Because now, your attention is no longer split. It's no longer filtered through judgment, comparison, resistance. Instead, it's wide open, present, listening. And from this place you begin to truly hear things you've never heard before. The sound of your own breath, the rustling of the wind through leaves, the texture of your emotions, not as problems to solve, but as waves to feel. You begin to hear people too, not just their words, but the silence beneath their words, the space between their sentences, the energy of what is not being said, and most importantly, you begin to hear yourself. Not the self-image, not the constructed identity, but something deeper, a presence, a beingness, something wordless that has always been here, watching, waiting, loving you through every season of your life. This is what Ram Dass meant. Not that you need to escape the world, but that you need to return to the space from which the world is seen. Silence is not against sound. It's not a rejection. It's the context in which sound becomes meaningful. It's the space that allows you to notice what matters and what doesn't. And as you rest in that space, something incredible happens. You begin to lose interest in noise, not because you're avoiding life, but because you've tasted something richer. A deep, unshakable peace. A sense that you don't need to chase anything anymore. Because in the quiet, you hear the truth. You are already home. You see, Silence is not a practice you do once a day and forget. It's not limited to meditation cushions or quiet rooms. It's a way of being, a shift in how you relate to life itself. Imagine moving through your day not as someone trying to get somewhere, not as a voice constantly narrating, but as awareness itself, open, relaxed, listening. The world continues, people talk, tasks unfold, but inside you are still. You are rooted in something deeper than the noise, and from that inner silence, your actions gain a new quality. You respond rather than react. You speak less, but with more truth. You begin to hear what is really needed from others, from the situation, from your own heart. This is what Ram Dass lived. Presence, silence in the middle of chaos, listening instead of labeling, sensing the sacred in the ordinary. And this is available to you now, not later, not after enlightenment or healing or spiritual progress. Now, but it takes trust. Trust that you don't need to fix every thought. Trust that you don't need to control every moment. Trust that silence will hold you, even when you don't know what's next. In silence, your problems shrink. Not because they disappear, but because you are no longer entangled in them. You begin to realize peace doesn't come from solving everything. It comes from no longer needing to solve everything. And this realization, this shift, is the beginning of true freedom, not a freedom that looks impressive, not a freedom that others may even notice, but a quiet freedom, one that listens, feels, lives, and loves without resistance. And it all begins when you become quiet. So now stop, just stop, for a moment. No effort, no trying to understand, no need to remember anything, just breathe. Notice the space you're in, not the room, the inner space, the vast, open stillness that doesn't ask for anything from you. It has no judgment, no past, no future. This is silence, not created, but revealed. And the more you return here, the more you begin to see everything you've been seeking, peace, clarity, truth, love. They are not out there. They were never out there. They were simply waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear them. This silence doesn't need you to be perfect. It doesn't require that you have no thoughts. It only asks one thing, that you listen. Really listen, without pushing, without wanting anything to be different. In that listening, you will find a joy that doesn't depend on circumstances, a knowing that doesn't come from the mind, and a love that asks nothing in return. Ram Dass didn't tell us to seek silence as an escape. He invited us into silence as the most intimate connection with life, with ourselves, with the sacred. So now, when the world feels loud, when your thoughts feel heavy, when you're lost in trying to figure it all out, remember, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And in that hearing, you don't find new answers. You find the end of the need for answers, because what remains is enough. What remains is real. What remains is you. Silent, aware, free.